Hi everybody, welcome back to Between the Lines and to my very first book haul video. I'm actually cheating a little bit. These are two book hauls I'll be covering today, but the first one I did when I wasn't making videos yet, and I really wanted to include them in this because I got some pretty cool stuff, so you're just gonna have to bear with me for that. So before I start showing you the books, I actually wanted to give a bit of a background as to why I started collecting used books and kind of what I do for my hauls, what my schedule is. Usually when I had bought books, I would just go to the big box retail stores and, spend way too much money on the stuff I was reading. But actually last summer I went to this small town about 2 hours from where I live. And they had two used bookstores there that were super cute and right by the water. One of the stores was actually selling a bunch of fantasy sci-fi books for 3 for $10. And I just fell in love with the fact that I could buy so many books for so little. So from then on, I started hunting down used books. I would track, thrift stores nearby me or look up other small cute stores, kind of like the ones that I found in that small town. And from there, I've only maybe bought 1 or 2 books retail in the last year, which has been great. But on the flip side, I now have way too many books in my place and don't have any room for them. But now I'm at the point where I have this channel and I'm talking about what I'm reading, and I just wanted to show you what I picked up and maybe compare the experience of buying used books for significantly discounted prices versus retail. And I wanted to share with you the type of books I pick up and how many I usually buy in a haul. This was 2, so it was a bit more, but I did get some really good deals with those ones at the second haul, considering all the paperbacks were just $1, which if I had gone to the big box retail store, I probably wouldn't buy any of these. So this is from the first haul I did about a month ago, and if you watch my Dark Tower review, you'd know the copy. I showed it off there. This is Wizard and Glass, which is book 4 of the Dark Tower series and is my favorite book in that series actually. This one is very self-contained and its story is a bit of a deviation from the actual tale told throughout the rest of the series, but I thought it was actually the best story out of the bunch and has elements of Western, adventure, fantasy, romance. Sounds a bit all over the place, but trust me, this book is amazing. And I really like this cover, especially compared to the mass market paperback one that I owned and that I read when I was going through the series. And it was actually being sold for a pretty decent price considering that it's in really good condition. So I think the rest of the books from that initial haul at that used store I went to were all classic sci-fi. If you've seen my newbie tag, you know that I'm trying to get into more classic sci-fi with authors like Robert A. Heinlein, Larry Niven, or Arthur C. Clarke. I've dabbled in classic sci-fi, but I don't know too much about it, so I'm always keeping an eye out for books when I do my hauls that fall within this category. Starting with Orphans of the Sky by Robert A. Heinlein. This one actually was talked about. I first heard of it on The Friendship Onion, which is the podcast run by the actors of Billy Boyd and Dom Monaghan, who played Merry and Pippin in the Lord of the Rings movies. And they had Stephen Colbert on as one of the guests. People may know that Stephen Colbert is a huge Lord of the Rings fan, and they were just talking about some books that he grew up loving, and he included this one on the list, so when I saw it at the store, I picked it up right away. Next is Imperial Earth by Arthur C. Clarke. This one, I think I saw in a Man Carrying Thing video. I think that's where I first noticed the cover. I think in that video he said the cover was really neat, and it is. It does this, which I like. I'm a big fan of 2001: A Space Odyssey, the movie. On some days, if you ask me, I might say that's my favorite movie. I've read the book as well, and I really enjoyed it, so very excited to get into another Arthur C. Clarke book. I also have Childhood's End lined up to read in my TBR, so when I get to that time that I'm actually gonna do the deep dive into some classic sci-fi, I'll definitely include those in that reading. Next is Mona Lisa Overdrive by William Gibson. This is the third in the Sprawl trilogy, of which the first is Neuromancer. I don't think that the books are necessarily like direct sequels to one another. They just take place in the same world and have some overlapping themes or characters, but correct me if I'm wrong. This is the third one, so now I'm missing the second, which I believe is called Count Zero. I really love Neuromancer. I like cyberpunk as an aesthetic and a setting, and to read through what some consider to be the quintessential cyberpunk novel was really enjoyable. Once I find Count Zero, if I ever find it, I'll read that and then get into this one. Lastly, from that first book haul, I picked up The Martian Chronicles by Ray Bradbury. This is a short story collection, I believe, or some sort of mashup of old short stories that connect to an overarching story or theme involving Mars. This is one of his most famous collections. I've read The Illustrated Man so far and a handful of other other short stories that I have in a separate collection, and I'm really into Ray Bradbury and want to dive into him a bit more. And don't get too mad at me, but I haven't read Fahrenheit 451 yet. I'm gonna do it, I promise. In the next month or two I'm gonna read that. So that was it for the first haul. Now moving into the second one, but still kind of linked, I found some more classic sci-fi and picked up actually The Moat in God's Eye by Larry Niven and Jerry Purnell. I've definitely heard of this one before in lists of sci-fi that are absolute reads, but I don't know much about it, except that Larry Niven is pretty well regarded. And I've also picked up another one by this duo, that being Inferno. I heard of that in one of Brandon Sanderson's lectures that he puts out every year. He talked about Inferno, and it's kind of a fantasy mashup that intertwines with the story of Dante's Inferno, and it sounded really interesting. Next is Expanded Universe by Robert A. Heinlein. I don't know much about this one either. I think it's a short story collection, but I may have read somewhere that it also includes some essays. I know his kind of quintessential collection is Stranger in a Strange Land, and I'm gonna read that too. But I figured maybe as an introduction to his work, along with Orphans of the Sky, would be to read some short stories. So I think I'll dive into this one, but let me know if I should start with Stranger in a Strange Land first, or if there's anything in here that I should look out for in particular. Then there's The Talisman by Stephen King and Peter Straub. And this one is something that popped up a lot during my reading of The Dark Tower. In the podcast I listened to called Kingslingers, they would frequently bring up The Talisman as a point of comparison, or maybe as a story that has some links directly or indirectly to The Dark Tower. And I almost bought this for $10 a few months ago when I was doing a book pickup off of somebody selling some used ones, but I found this for $1, so I think that's a win in my books. And then we have Tagana by Guy Gavriel Kay. This is an author I've been meaning to read for at least the last year. His name first came up when I started getting back into fantasy and hearing people talk about his work being super rich and deep and emotional. And when I read The Silmarillion, that's when I discovered that he actually helped put that together with Christopher Tolkien. And then I learned that he was also Canadian. So I started keeping an eye out for his books and maybe some of the ones that were better regarded. And I've collected to this point The Lions of Al-Rasan and Isabel, and now this one. And lastly, we have The Path of Daggers by Robert Jordan, which some of you, if you've seen my newbie tag, know I already own. However, I own the hardcover version, which to be honest is a really beautiful copy and is in really good condition. But for the rest of the Robert Jordan ones that I own currently, not including the Brandon Sanderson ones, they're all in paperback, and I just kind of wanted to pick this up for maybe completionist sake, just to have all the paperbacks, because if you look at my bookshelf, it's all just flat paperbacks of the Jordan ones, and then when you get to the Path of Daggers, it's some huge hardcover and then back down like this. So now I have both versions. I think I'll read this one when I actually go through the series, because it's a paperback. Not that I prefer one over the other, but the other one's in such good condition and I really love the artwork on it, so I kind of want to save that and put it away. Either way, I'm excited I found it. This is another one where I almost picked it up for $10 or more, and I got this one for $1 at the used book sale. So that's it for this haul. I'm trying to limit myself to do these once a month. So once a month, keep an eye out for a different book haul. I'm going to that small town I referred to at the beginning of the video with the 2 used bookstores in a week or 2. So that'll be my next one, which will come out in October. Let me know if you've read any of these and what you thought, if they were good or maybe worth skipping, or if there's any other books from some of these authors that maybe you think I should look out for. And now I gotta go find where to put these books because I'm running out of bookshelf space. So wish me luck. Remember to do all the YouTube stuff like liking and subscribing. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.